Boss asked/told me to start traveling out of the blue. Is this reasonable for most jobs, or am I right to be upset/distraught? Is it reasonable for me to be asked to travel once a month now when I had previously not been traveling at all? I've been at my current job for almost 4 years now as a mechanical engineer, and kind of out of the blue, I'm being asked/told to start traveling monthly. The trip will be 3 days. First day driving, about 7 hour drive. Second day working. Third day driving back. I'm expected to work until mid afternoon the first day and then drive to the destination. I'm not really a fan of doing this, and it wasn't something I was told I would need to do when I took this job. I was told travel would be once or twice a year and not necessarily overnight. But now I'm being told I will be the guy to do it, and it will be monthly. I don't want to do this at all, but I'm afraid I'll be fired if I don't do it. Had I known travel would be a significant component of the job, at least this amount of traveling feels significant to me, I would not have taken this job, but I don't have any other options. If it were a day trip, I wouldn't mind, but because of the timing of the trip, it basically means that once a month I'll work a 55 to 60-hour week. Is it reasonable to gain this new responsibility? Am I just being a baby? So it sounds like the expectation was is once a year, and maybe that was also in the job posting or the job description. You might want to go back and review the job description for the job that you applied for. You might be able to point to that and talk to your manager. Have you been promoted since then? New job if you've been promoted, your new job description may be different. But I think it's reasonable for you to be traveling as an engineer. Sometimes we do work and then we have to go visit it in the sites. But I don't think that it's reasonable for them to expect you to travel on your own time. See, they say the trip will be 3 days. First day driving, about 7 hours drive. Second day working. Third day driving back, and you're expected to work until mid afternoon the first day, and then drive to the destination. What I'd say is that you got to travel on company time, or you have to be allowed to have the option to travel on company time because you're traveling for the company, so you should be considered traveling on company time. And if they want to have you travel outside of company time, then they're opening themselves up to overtime or some other kind of arrangement of compensation. I don't think it's fair of them to expect you to, when you travel, work additional hours. And maybe your boss just suggested that without really thinking about it. Maybe that's just what they do. But I think it's personally reasonable for you to say, hey, boss, that's fine. I can travel, but I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to leave at this time and I'm going to travel during work hours because I'm working. Also, are you traveling using a company car? You should be using a company car, or if you have a personal car, make sure they're not just paying for your gas. They're giving you the IRS reimbursement rate. And if they're making you take your personal car and you don't want to take your personal car, do ask if you have the option to take a rental car instead. If you don't want to put extra wear and tear on your personal vehicle, I would personally prefer not to put that wear and tear on my personal vehicle and rather take a rental car if I'm driving on company business, even if I'm traveling from my home destination where I have my personal vehicle. I'd rather drive on a company trip in a company vehicle or a rental vehicle. If you're not a fan of it, then you're not a fan of it. And I mean, I don't think your boss will fire you if you just ask, "Hey, is this really what you need me to do? Am I really the person that needs to do this?" I will say though that it could slightly limit your career growth because as you grow in your career, oftentimes the higher up in your career, the more likely you are going to be expected to have some travel in your career, and a complete resistance to the idea of traveling could potentially limit your career growth. And even if it's not necessarily directly limiting your career growth in this role, and maybe your says, "Okay, that's fine, you don't have to travel." It'll probably always live in the back of their mind, which is something that if you're okay with that, then you're okay with that. Um, but let's see what the comments say. They say, as somebody who traveled 30 weeks a year, you need to find out one, are you paying travel time? AKA, are you clocked in while driving? It doesn't matter if your salary, are you considered on the clock while driving? If yes, any accidents you may get into should be covered by the employer and workers' comp. If no, then ask that you are. Compensation could be additional overtime or additional PTO hours accrued. Two, are they paying you mileage? Let's talk about that. The current IRS mileage rate is 65.5 cents per mile. A 7 hour drive sounds like 400 miles or roughly $800 round trip. That's $524 per trip. If they refuse, ask if they'll fly you. It'd probably be cheaper anyways, and it will save you time. 3, I'm assuming you're staying in a hotel. Are they paying for your food? You're losing the ability to cook for yourself and being forced to eat out. They should be covering all expenses, including a daily food per diem. 4, don't let them give you a corporate credit card. Instead, ask to be reimbursed for all expenses. Get a Marriott credit card, Delta, Hilton, or whoever, and rack up points. Also, stay at the same hotel chain and rack up reward points. Always pay your card off right after you get reimbursed. If you're staying 2 nights in a hotel a month, 24 nights a year, and using your card to pay for gas and food, you'll probably rack up enough points for a full week every year. The travel may be inconvenient, but it should come with perks. If it doesn't, well, then push back if possible or ask for an increase in pay. That's really good advice. I got most of those things. I personally travel using a corporate credit card. Um, sometimes whenever I drive, I do take a personal vehicle, and then I get reimbursed the IRS reimbursement rate. I said that I prefer not to, but when I moved, I drove personal vehicles, and I got reimbursed the IRS rate for that move. It just depends on your situation. Some companies require you to get a corporate card. But yeah, there's just some questions you need to ask to define your experience. So, but definitely, I'd avoid the idea of them making you drive while not on the clock. I think that's a big point to consider here. So, best of luck with you and your situation.
Miscommunicating. I just made a pilot, then they threw me on the stations. Now I'm not complaining, now I'm not complaining. My thoughts get complicated, I cannot explain in lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.